Thank you for that very lovely introduction, Jack. My name's Jess Mills. I'm the co-founder of Act for Cancer and daughter of Tessa Jowell. My mum is one of the most fearless, courageous, change-making women of her generation, and on the 24th of May last year was rushed to hospital after suffering 2 major seizures and was subsequently diagnosed with a grade 4 glioblastoma in the left temporal lobe of her brain. Nothing can prepare a patient or family for a diagnosis like glioblastoma. Even for a family of staunch optimists like my own, when presented with a median prognosis of 14 months and the standard of care which offers no hope at all for longer-term survival or good quality of life, we were cast off into a landscape that felt impossibly dark and utterly hopeless. The adjustment to this new reality for families is nothing short of devastating. And in the face of such hopelessness, it's very easy just to become catatonic, totally disorientated by grief and the disbelief that this could happen to the person most central to your universe. However, what we didn't know at this point was that we were already at the lucky end of an awful spectrum. As the news of Mum's diagnosis became known to friends and colleagues, we suddenly found ourselves under the guidance and advice of some of the leading global experts in neuro-oncology and medical innovation. I will never forget the first meeting we had with Jack. He said, "I know this feels hopeless, but I promise you, a glioblastoma diagnosis is not now even what it was 2 years ago. There's so much more that we know and so much more that can be done." And in one moment, it was like that low ceiling was removed, and in the coming days, a galaxy of other options were presented to us. In order to pursue many of these other options, having tumour sample was essential. Every tumour is uniquely different, and understanding the key drivers of the tumour soon after diagnosis can enable a more targeted, precise, and effective approach when considering potential treatments from the beginning. So much of what we've been able to do for my mum over this past year has been because her tumour was flash frozen post-surgery, not because it was a compulsory part of the protocol, but purely by chance because she had an excellent surgeon. It's nothing short of a tragedy that patients and families could miss out on this opportunity to extend both survival and improve quality of life, because we're not moving with the real-time pace of innovation. We know precision medicine is creating better outcomes for patients, and for that, you need tumour sample. So, on a very practical level, we've urged there to be an immediate change to the protocol post-surgery to mean that all patients' tumours of all types of cancer are frozen post-surgery. This is not only essential with regards to enabling gene sequencing and consequently accessing more personalised treatments, but it's also key to helping to create the next generation type of data that is needed to create deeper and broader research and understanding. Once we knew Mum's genomic data, everything from nutraceuticals to repurposed medications to off-label cancer drugs could be recommended, many of which, when used in combination, have shown evidence of patients hugely outliving their prognosis, and very importantly, with good quality of life too. Of course, the National Health Service operates as it has to, within narrow financial limits and within a strict ethical framework. But the fact is, if you look outside those limits, all sorts of innovative, sophisticated treatments are being pioneered and used with promising success. So it didn't take us long to identify that our greatest chances currently lay way, way, way outside the system. It was clear that we were going to have to fight tooth and nail to access these other treatment options ourselves. The daily reality of this is a surreal one. For a person with no medical background at all, I found myself chasing down chief medical officers of big pharmas, trying to persuade them to accept our compassionate applications for off-label EGFR inhibitors. But do we go for afatinib or lapatinib? Dipatoxuzizumab or Tagrisso? Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. But lucky for us, by virtue of the incredible professional network my mum has developed during her career, we had by this point managed to assemble a global team of advisors who were collaborating and consulting with each other to try and reach a consensus on what we should go for. Creating a consensus across this many teams, institutions, and time zones is a complex process to manage, but it has enabled us to move forward over this past year with a supported analysis of potential outcomes and risks. Risk. Here is a very key word in terms of navigating patient experience. Yes, there's a risk. Of course there is. But it's one you're prepared to take, as the risk of doing nothing is far greater. The risk of doing nothing at all with a glioblastoma is certainly that you will die within months, not years. But even if you are prepared to take the risk, how could patients without this network of support possibly navigate this on their own? Beyond the standard of care for most patients is the current model of randomized controlled trials. And the broad focus being on the advancement of science means that we are forgetting about the most important thing of all, which is access. In not prioritizing access to treatments, we are forgetting about the patient, our mothers, our brothers, our children, our partners, and the best friends to all of us. The consequence of this is the highest price there is to pay. Patients die, and they quite possibly are dying much sooner than they would because the options available to them are so limited. So one of the big questions we have to ask is, how are we going to address the huge cancer inequalities that currently exist? As far as we're concerned at Act for Cancer, this is an issue of social justice. Surely we cannot accept a health system in this country where some will live, or at least live better, and others will die because of their privilege of access or lack of it. Addressing the huge cancer inequalities is at the core of our vision for the future, and making adaptive combination therapies available to all patients post-diagnosis is a key way of enabling this. But no matter how excellent your consultants are, get-a-betting outcomes is directly correlated to a patient or family's ability to stay on top of the multifarious, practical things that need to be managed in the patient's best interests, and your ability to turn advice into action. In jargon terms, this is the role of the patient advocate. It's a funny term, patient advocate. It sounds so formal and professional. When actually it's anything but. It's the role that a daughter, a mother, a sibling, or a partner automatically and involuntarily assumes in response to a devastating diagnosis of the person most central to their universe. It's a mission of love, to do anything that is humanly possible to save the person they love beyond description. Having a strong patient advocate is the thing that can expedite a treatment process to take weeks instead of months, days instead of weeks, and hours instead of days. This may sound neurotic in the extreme, but in the case of glioblastoma, these are tumours that can grow at a rate of 1 centimetre a month, so truly every day does count. Patient advocacy is life-saving work. I often think about where we would be if we didn't have the benefit of the network of support we have managed to build around us. And the answer is, Mum may still not be with us now. And then I think about the thousands of other families going through a similar thing, but without that support, and feel desperately the need to change this, for those who don't have the voice to do it for themselves. The only time I've seen my mum cry since she was diagnosed was last summer, after having sat waiting for one of her radiotherapy appointments, having observed the waiting room of people and processing the brutal realization that the fate of every single person in that room had already been written by virtue of their privilege or lack of, and their ability to go beyond the brutal limitations of the current standard of care, which is just simply surgery, radiotherapy, and chemo. Her sense of mission, as was mine, was written in those moments, and we both feel commissioned to transform patient access, and not just for the privileged few, but for all of us. Mum has never thought about herself. She's only thought about how we can change this for everyone else. And that is what ACT has been created to do. The future for better outcomes for patients is going to involve a complete paradigm shift. We cannot rely on the old models to create the solutions we need to see. We need to reimagine the future completely, in a completely different way. So how do we change that? We need to empower oncologists and we need to empower patients. We need to completely reimagine the future to see a context where adaptive combination therapies, adaptive collaborative treatments are made available to everyone, irrespective of access or income, through the National Health Service, so that no stone is left unturned for patients and for families. The policy and the systems both need to be in place to make ACTs a reality, but that's what we're here to do. And this is not just for glioblastoma, this is for all forms of complex cancer. With 1 in 2 of us now likely to face a diagnosis of cancer in their lifetimes, this mission is one that should bind us all together with a collective sense of purpose, for better, longer lives with cancer, for all of us. Thank you.